UK gardeners are experiencing drier, hotter summers than usual. And this video is going to be all about showing you how to identify plants that can thrive, not just survive, but thrive in much drier conditions.
If you are looking for a dry tolerant plant, then I would highly recommend this. It's a Hylotelephium. You may know it as a sedum. I've included it in this drought tolerant garden for many reasons. The bees and butterflies absolutely love it. It's got a great red foliage and it's very, very hardy, down to about -20. The contrasting colour looks great against the gravel and many other plants. Another reason I love this plant is because it's very low maintenance in terms of pruning. All you have to do once a year is cut it down to the ground and then it will come back with vigour next year. It doesn't need much water at all because it's got very fleshy leaves and it stores its own water. So clever.
Well, our garden here at Wentworth is all about drought tolerant planting, and one of our key plants is the Bupleurum fruticosum, which is part of the carrot family and one of the very few shrubby plants within the carrot family. And also it's one of the few southern Mediterranean plants that will flower in the summer months, because most Mediterranean plants will go summer dormant. However, this beauty flowers now. And it's got really sort of leathery green leaves, which are slightly glaucous, like blue-grey in colour, which will help repel the sunlight and help with the plant's transpiration. This plant will thrive pretty much anywhere in the UK as long as you're on sort of free draining soil, so don't plant it in heavy clay.
My recommendation would be Erigeron karvinskianus or fleabane because it's got lots of lovely character to it. It grows pretty much anywhere, in any crack, any bit of wall or edge of borders, like I've got here where they can trail and just add a nice soft structure to your garden. And really they flower for months. You don't really have to deadhead them. And they start out a lovely white colour and then fade to a nice pink. And I think that's just adds a nice cottage garden feel to any particularly dry spot, but they grow anywhere, so lots of things to say about those. They're really good. So another lovely feature about this plant is the fact that it self-seeds, and it self-seeds really generously. So once you've got it in your garden, it'll just keep spreading around, adding more colour in a lovely wave of pink and white, and adding a nice cottage garden style to your garden.
So I would recommend something like oregano as a good beginner's plant. So you've got a couple of examples here. You may know them as a herb, so they're in the kitchen as well as in your garden. But they're robust, they're drought adapted, they come from the Mediterranean, really tough and hardy. It's a lovely looking plant, it's very delicate, and it attracts wildlife such as bees, but it's also very forgiving for us as horticulturists. It's easy to propagate for cuttings if you fancy that later on, and it will also self-seed itself through the garden, creating more opportunities for you and for the bees. So I mentioned that it comes from the Mediterranean region, where the rains come in the winter. And this plant is evergreen, so it catches the rain through the way the foliage diverts rain down to its roots. And then it has quite a shallow root system that can absorb that rainwater quite well. So it's a really strong, functional plant in every sense of the word.
I love Agapanthus as a drought-tolerant plant. Well, there's two types of Agapanthus. There's a deciduous one and an evergreen one. Unlike the evergreen one, which you'd have to bring inside over winter, the deciduous varieties can stay outside in your garden as long as they're planted in free-draining soil, and you give them a mulch in the winter just to protect them from frost and getting waterlogged. Well, interestingly, below the soil, it's got quite a fleshy root system. So when water is available, it can take up the water and then store it, which sees it through periods of drought.
English lavender or Lavandula angustifolia. So that cultivar is called Hidcote. You can see the leaves are very thin and waxy, so that's to reduce the evaporation. And also you can see the leaves are not very light green. I think it's a little bit silvery green, so that's also a natural way to combat drought conditions. This plant is surprisingly hardy. They can endure very low temperatures as low as -10 Celsius, so it can survive in most winters in most regions of the UK.
This is Santolina chamaecyparissus. I love this plant because it's soft, it's delicate, and it has a lovely chamomile aroma. that is just perfect for like a sensory feel, a bit of tactile, bit of aromatherapy in your garden. And the flowers themselves are relatively unique. They're not your average flower shape. They are like little buttons, and you just get that lovely texture to break up some coarser foliage. It's good for Mediterranean gardens, gravel gardens, for your rockeries. But if you've got an area in your garden which does not retain any moisture at all, this one's your choice.